What's going on YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. A little while ago, Krusi posted a short with me about his gun exploding at the range. This is that gun. It might not look too bad starting out, but we're gonna take it apart, kind of look at what the gun did and talk about what we think happened with that cartridge. So you're probably asking yourself, what even qualifies me to talk about these things? Like, I'm just a security guard, right? Yeah, probably. Once upon a time, I was in the service, and while I was there, I was responsible for armament and maintenance on firearms, and one of the things I went to was the Glock Armorer's course. I am no longer a Glock Armorer. It's expired, but they haven't changed since then. Not really. There's a couple of updates with like barrels and things like that, but for the most part, the operating principles of the Glock are the same. So first things first, this is a Gen 5 Glock 17. It's not loaded. It's not actually capable of being loaded anymore. Well, I mean, I guess it could be loaded, but like it can't fire. There's no striker or anything like that in there. I don't know if you can see that on camera, can you? Yeah, so it doesn't have the ability to fire, but just for YouTube reasons and for making sure everybody at home knows that I'm being safe with this, there's no ammunition present on me or at the site of us filming. So normally to take down a Glock, you have to depress the trigger to release the striker. In this case, there is no striker, so it just falls right apart. Super easy. Let's go ahead and get into each part. We're going to start with the lower receiver. Alright, you guys, so this is the lower receiver of this Glock 17 Gen 5. There's a couple of components missing, mainly the trigger shoe, the trigger bar, and the trigger mechanism housing, as well as the connector, all the type of stuff that has to do with the trigger. Not a lot of these pieces actually broke, but the trigger shoe blew out of the bottom of the pistol, so we removed the whole trigger assembly to begin with. If you guys want to see those parts, we do still have some of them. Some of these parts are forever gone, but we do have the pieces that we took out. We can show you guys that later. But looking into here, we can see that the receiver itself actually survived. There's no major cracking or any kind of damage to the actual polymer. It's just the trigger and the pin that was holding the trigger in got a little bent. You can see parts of the trigger actually still hanging in there. I don't know how easy it is to see that on camera, but there's a little nubbins right there. But yeah, so the rest of the lower receiver actually survived, and I do want to note that Krusi does not run a plug in the bottom of his pistol, and we'll talk about why that's important here in a little bit. Alright, next up we're going to talk about the upper receiver. This is where most of the damage took place. So let's go ahead and get this recoil spring out of the way, as well as the barrel. But while we have the barrel in our hands, I do want to mention that we do have a little bit of bulging on the barrel. It's not very visible on camera, but you can run your finger over it and you can feel where the barrel bulged out right here. I had to find it because I forgot where it was at, but like right here, there's like a lump. It almost feels like, I don't know if you guys have ever hit your head really hard and then you form a lump. That's what it feels like. The rest of the barrel appears to be fine, but I personally would not shoot this barrel again. I think this is one of the parts that needs to be replaced just because of that bulging. I don't know how damaged that is, and we would need special tools to be able to like x-ray the barrel and find out for sure. The next notable things, we already kind of talked about a little bit. The striker, the extractor plunger, the back plate, all that stuff has been removed. That's all been removed because the back plate actually cracked and broke. So when that came off, we pulled all the other pieces out, threw them in a little baggie somewhere so we wouldn't lose them. The striker spacer, all the springs in there, those are all fine. Even the plunger is okay, but the extractor did blow out. We actually don't have this piece anymore. It went flying across the range and landed somewhere where we didn't find it. So the result of that is the plunger actually slams forward against the back of the barrel and locks the gun up, so you can't accidentally fire another round or tap rack or anything like that. That gun has a hard lock, and in this case he lost his trigger as well, so he wouldn't have been able to fire another round anyways. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at my shower systems. It's not a Glock, but the parts are very similar. We can actually interchange the extractor and some of the plunger components and things. They're all the same pieces, so it'll give you guys a decent one-to-one, but it is not exactly the same. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the lower receiver first, side by side. Okay, so this lower receiver that I'm tapping, this is the Shadow Systems, and this is the Glock. You guys can see some of the components that are in here that are not in here. That's what we're missing in the Glock 17 at this time, as well as the trigger shoes. Trying to make sure you guys can see that okay. All right, so again, these are very similar firearms. They're made by different manufacturers, but the Shadow Systems is a clone of Glock. But you guys can see just how much of this has to be replaced now in the 17. Okay, so I can't actually remove my barrel without punching this pin out, and I don't feel like doing that right now, so ignore the barrel. But other than that, what we have here is both slides side by side. This is the back plate off the Shadow Systems. There should be one of these on the Glock. There's no longer one of those on the Glock. You can also see right here, this one has its extractor still. This is the piece that blew off and went flying across the range. And then the striker should look like that, but again, it's missing out of this gun at this time. The extractor, again, just pops right out. This is part of the reason why they're so easy to just lose, is because they're actually not that hard to get out of the gun to begin with, unless you are me struggling with this Shadow Systems. Wow. That is in there. Okay, I'll be right back with you guys. So I forgot about something. Shadow Systems does not use the plunger springs the same way that Glocks do. They actually pin their plunger springs in there. I'm having trouble getting that extractor out because I haven't released spring pressure on it. So I'm not going to be pulling that out right now because, again, I would need a punch and I don't feel like grabbing them right now. So. Okay, so we're going to go back to talking about the lower receiver for a minute, and specifically this little hole at the bottom of the gun. I'll try and make sure you guys can see through there. There's a little bit of light coming through right in here, not the mag well, but above that. And what that is a overpressure or overgas port. So a lot of people will throw like plugs in here. Some of the mag wells. So for example, on the Shadow Systems, I have a mag well on this one. Some of the mag wells occupy that space as well, and that's okay if you have the right mag well. Some mag wells are not compatible with it. Even though they fit in there, it's not necessarily safe, because what happens when guns have higher pressure cartridges or catastrophic failures like this Glock, there's three things that Glocks are supposed to do when that happens. And one of them is to vent extra gas through that bottom right here so you don't burn your hand and have the gun actually detonate in your hand. It's to protect the shooter. The second thing that happens is that extractor is meant to blow out of the way, and the plunger is supposed to slam forward and stop the gun from actioning so that you don't tap rack and then blow your gun up even worse. And the third thing that occasionally happens is that backplate cracks and causes the striker to not be functional anymore. This one was a little weird because the trigger blew out. That doesn't always happen. So something different happened here. I don't know if it was a out of battery detonation. I don't think it was, because Glocks are not really capable of doing that with the way that their trigger safeties work, and the inertia safety and the drop fire safety. They all have to be engaged and in battery for those to disengage to allow the striker to touch the back of the round. So I'm not really sure what happened there, but what I do think I know what happened with the cartridge. We've seen a couple of times now, the specific person that loaded the cartridges that we were shooting has not always been the most reliable reloader or pre-manufacturer of ammo, and we've occasionally seen either double charges or occasionally even rifle powder in handgun cartridges. And I think that's what happened here. I think we had a cartridge that was loaded to the correct specs, but with the wrong powder. I think we were using, and again, not me, I don't reload myself, but the individual that reloaded these cartridges, I think he loaded rifle powder, which has a much faster burn time and a lot higher PSI, which causes issues in your gun. So, okay, so in conclusion, what we think happened is we think the cartridge was overpressured, and specifically by using rifle powder, not a double charge. It was reloads, it was not factory ammunition. That reloader is someone that we haven't used in a long time. We just had some ammo laying around, and we know better. We shouldn't be shooting his ammo, but it was just kind of what was around, and we needed to qualify for our annual requals. So Just once in a while, you get one of these rounds that are bad. We've seen it from factory loads as well, especially during COVID. There was some really bad factory ammo coming out. I don't want to out any companies in particular, but we had some 115 grain range ammo that was undercharged, where we were having squibs. I think during the COVID years, we had like 3 or 4 squibs in total. We've also had a couple of overcharged rounds that did not cause a catastrophic malfunction. They were a little hot, and you could tell by how much the recoil, it recoiled more and it was louder, and you can kind of tell when you shoot a lot of rounds, you get to a point where you can feel, oh, okay, that round was a little bit different. In conclusion, make sure you trust your ammo source. And even if you do trust your ammo source, don't be fooled into thinking that this can never happen to you. This is a very possible thing. The gun did exactly what it's supposed to do. It locked out, it protected our shooter. Stockton is safe, his hands are intact, he did not lose any digits. He is going to be financially painful for a little bit while he replaces some of these parts, but in the grand scheme of things, most of the gun that needs to be replaced is not particularly expensive. The most expensive part is probably the barrel, and if he buys a really nice trigger, maybe the trigger. But outside of that, if this happens to you, it's not the end of the world. Just do your due diligence and make sure all the parts are the way they're supposed to be. And if you don't know what you're looking at, go find somebody who does. It's not unreasonable to check out local gun stores and find somebody who's experienced with Glocks. As a matter of fact, that's probably the most common gun to be experienced with. But again, there's bad information out there too, and there's people who think they know what they don't know. It is what it is. So if you guys have any questions, comments, and concerns, leave it in the comments below. If you guys liked this content, please subscribe to the channel. And other than that, you guys have a great day, stay safe, and shoot safe.